We are joined now by Billy Hayes. I'm thrilled to have him here. I want to hear this story. Riding the Midnight Express is at the Downstairs Cabaret Theatre. It begins again tonight, runs through Sunday. We got to set you up for people who might not know the story. Midnight Express was a movie that came out in the 70s based on your five years in a Turkish prison. Right. You wrote a book about it, and then it became a movie. And now you are riding the Midnight Express. What's the show about?
Essentially, the movie they made a lot of changes between the real story and such. So this is the chance for me to come back and sort of tell it in my own words with some perspective. You know, I'm 68 now. I was 23, an idiot kid back when this happened. So hopefully I can add a little more to the story.
Yeah. Wow. What were you feeling at that moment, back when you're 23 and you get caught up in this, a little bit of trouble?
My first reaction was to deny reality. This can't be happening to me. This can't be happening, because I just thought I was invincible, as most young kids do. And then I discovered that I was not.
You were a student at Marquette.
Right.
You went to Turkey to buy hashish.
The adventure part of it. I was a writer. I went to Marquette's J School, and I wanted to get out in the world, experience life, so I can write about it. Surprise, surprise. I mean, I've ended up with 3 books out of it, and became an actor, and this has been, you know, wonderful. But it was a long ways around to get to.
How did the movie differ from the reality?
They made some basic changes. My biggest problem, brilliant film, well done, and all the actors and the writer. My problem is that you don't see any good Turks in the whole film, and it creates this overall impression that this is a terrible country and these are horrible people, none of which is true. I'm not talking politics, Greece and Turkey. I mean, I'm talking to people. I quite like the people. And the movie was so heavy-handed. The director himself, Alan Parker, said he felt that perhaps he was politically naive in realizing the power of film. Because a movie, you know, for 40 years I've been saying the film doesn't represent the country. But my little voice compared to images on the screen.
Right.
So the show is also a chance for me to kind of rectify and balance that a little bit. I've had a lot of Turkish people actually coming to my show and saying that they feel that this helps them psychically to balance, because the Turkish tourism dropped 95% when Midnight Express came out in 1978.
I know you said there's a different perspective here. You're telling more of your side. It differs from the movie. But what else do you hope people get out of hearing your story?
Well, I hope at the very least, my life is a cautionary tale. You know, when I speak to colleges or high school kids, it's always, if you're this stupid, look what can happen to you. And they get that, but they think they're invincible. And I have a message which is, do what you like and know what you're doing. Knowing what you're doing means you take responsibility for your actions, because you have to live with the consequences. And I never realized or even thought about the consequences of my actions until it was too late, and I realized not only have I put myself in prison, but all the people who love me are in jail, that my mom is going to suffer every day for 5 years. That was hard. Prison forced me to grow up. It's probably the best thing that ever happened, strangely enough. The worst and the best thing that ever
you didn't
happened.
think that at the time, but you realize it with that perspective.
But I met my wife. When the movie came out in 1978 at the Cannes Film Festival, I met the woman who is still my wife today.
Oh, that's great.
So I always tell her, I needed to go through all of that to get to you, dear. And she says, save that for your audiences. But it's the truth. You never know which path you're going to take in life, where it's going to lead.
You've been back to Turkey. I think it was 2007 you went back for the first time. What was that like?
That was amazing. Strangely enough, I'd always wanted to go back because, again, I loved Istanbul. I spent a lot of time there prior to getting arrested. The movie creates this terrible impression of Turkey. They don't deal with my time before being arrested and how much I like the city and the people. So it was a chance to go back and see my boyhood dreams again. And I was the most hated man in Turkey because of the movie, especially the courtroom scene in the movie where I get resentenced. And the writer, Oliver Stone, wrote my speech for that, and he just cursing Turkey and yelling really nasty stuff. What I said is, I can't agree with you. You're going to sentence me to more prison. All I can do is forgive you. That's the other end of what was on the movie. And because of that courtroom scene, that yelling and screaming, they issued an Interpol warrant for my arrest that stood for 20 years.
I was going to say, you were still wanted in Turkey because you escaped.
After the escape, they didn't issue the Interpol warrant when I escaped or when my book Midnight Express came out, but when the movie came out, that's when they did it. And this was a chance to I keep doing this, and healing things. And it did. I spoke in front of the Turkish press and on the TVs over there, and afterwards, a lot of Turkish people said, thank you, you know, you've helped balance this bad impression of our country. And I've got Turkish people who've been coming to my show and talking to me, which is actually quite heartwarming for me.
So you get a sense of forgiveness.
Yes. Yes, and
good.
that's helped a lot. In fact, last year on October 29th, every year the Turkish Republic raises the Turkish flag above Wall Street. And this year they invited me to come back, so I got to raise the Turkish flag above Wall Street.
Oh,
which,
my.
In terms of completion and complete
Full circle,
turnaround,
yeah.
who would have thought that I'd be raised the Turkish flag above Wall Street? And it was a very emotional feeling. I had the ambassador and about 40 or 50 prominent Turkish people, and we were all very emotional. I could barely keep it together.
Yeah. Wow.
But it feels good now. And to be able to talk about it again, as an actor, this is a treat. To be able to do something, and then when it finishes, to do it again. We've been doing the show for 2 years now around the world.
Let's promote the show a little bit before we run out of time. It's going to be at Downstairs Cabaret Theatre, which is at Winton Place, right?
Yeah.
And so, because it's been in different places through the years. It's at Winton Place, and the shows again are when?
Tonight at 8 and tomorrow at 8 and I believe on Sunday at 2.
Okay.
Tonight at 7, 8, and then 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. In case there's not a Bills game, we might get some people in there, which I hope.
Well, it's been really fascinating talking to you, and your story, different versions of your story are so well known, and it's great that you're able, with this show, to kind of just finally put it in your words. And
I'm hoping I can offer some encouragement or inspiration. You know, everybody's been down in a deep hole trying to find their way out. My story's a little more compact and dramatic, but it's the same thing. People can relate to being down in the depths and never giving up.
Billy Hayes, thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate